Welcome to the Vandy Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Lee. Our guest today, Mitch Light. This episode is presented by the Well Coffee House, which is a Nashville area coffee house that provides fresh roast coffee along with house-made pastries, breakfast, and lunch offerings. There are 4 locations to serve you in the Nashville area. Those are Brentwood, Green Hills, downtown, and Bellevue. You can get more information at wellcoffeehouse.org. The Well Coffee House, where coffee changes lives. We thank our co-sponsor, Wellspire, Nashville's Learning and Development Center, which is located in the Gulch. Today's news is presented by Sutherland and Belk, a family-owned injury law firm. If your loved one has been hurt in an accident, call Taylor or Russell at 615-846-6200. See what your rights are and if they can help. Well, it's not getting easier for Vanderbilt men's basketball. Your final from Saturday, Tennessee 66, Vanderbilt 45. The Commodores have now lost 24 games in a row against Southeastern Conference teams and saw their 1,080-game streak with a three-pointer stop. That was one of the 3 longest in the country, and that is now gone. Our guest line, presented by Boll & Branch, started by Vanderbilt graduates Scott and Missy Tannen. I've slept on their sheets for years and loved them. Had no clue what I was missing till I got them. They are fair trade certified, so they're made under safe conditions by men and women treated and paid fairly. Try them free for a month. You can return them, but you won't want to. Once you have the sheets, try the mattress. That was voted the best mattress of 2018. Go to bollandbranch.com, which is spelled B-O-L-L. Enter the promo code Vandy and get $50 off your first set of sheets. Mitch Light joins us now. He is the sideline reporter for Vanderbilt football. And Mitch, do you have other employment secured at this time? Are you okay? You're not going homeless or anything like that?
I'm definitely not homeless. In the comforts of, actually, I got booted from, since we're recording on a holiday, I got booted from my home office, which doubles as my son's PlayStation/NBA 2K home. So I'm actually in his bedroom now while he plays NBA 2K. But no, I am. Last Monday was my first day at The Athletic as the managing editor for the state, basically the state of Tennessee. I think my official job is the managing editor for Nashville and Memphis. So working with our outstanding writers who cover the Titans, the Predators, and the Grizzlies, and doing some college stuff as well. We'll be working on some Vanderbilt stuff as time permits. My number one job is the editor of our Nashville and Memphis stuff, but I will also find some time to do some Vanderbilt stuff. I know the Vanderbilt baseball has obviously has a big following, and I know just talking to Joe Rexroad, who is one of our writers, did very well in the Tennessean last year, with as far as traffic. So I'm confident that if we do some good Vanderbilt stuff, so some people will read it, and obviously you do a great job with that. And we'll cover it more on a day-to-day basis than I will or we will at The Athletic, but we will have some Vanderbilt stuff coming in the next few months.
So the big question is, how do you manage your first world problems of booting out of video game rooms and stuff like that? That sounds like a challenge for you.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm the boss, so if I really wanted to kick my son out, I would. But it's about 20 degrees out, so I don't expect him to go out and play. I'll let him. But I did create a home office out of our bonus room, and it's weird, as you know, Chris. You work from home, and anyone listening who works from home, when I was at Athlon, if I'd work from home for a day or two, I'd just kind of work at the kitchen table, and it really felt like I was at home. Whereas if you've got a room in a different part of the house, like our bonus room, I actually felt like that was an office. So I didn't get up and go to the fridge every 2 or 3 minutes. But this morning, since my wife and son are home, my wife's a teacher and my son is obviously in school. I went to a coffee shop this morning to get out of the house, to get out of their way.
Yeah, my office at home, we've got a bonus room that is behind me, and then I've got an office off the bonus room. It used to be a storage room that we built out. So I'm in the same spot, and I've got a son, of course, being a holiday, who has been setting up a portable basketball hoop in the bonus room and has been coming in from time to time and letting me know of his three-point shooting exploits.
Nice. Starting young.
Speaking of which, that's a good lead into where we'll go today. But first of all, we give each other a hard time. I think people know this, but you and I are pretty good friends, and I could not be happier for you. I think The Athletic, to me, is the gold standard right now for sports journalism. I am a subscriber. You guys do fantastic work. I think at a time where sports journalism has gone to hot takes and 5 reasons why and stuff like this, it's really great to see somebody that puts in the time on the long form pieces and things like that. I really say this in all sincerity. I love what you guys are doing with bringing these stories told in a way that nobody else is telling them right now back into sports journalism.
Well, thanks, and that's a big reason why I was attracted to the job. I had a great run at Athlon Sports. It was, as I said, anyone who's asked and said on social media, it was truly a dream job, and did it for 18 years. I was just kind of ready for a new challenge, and I saw this job posted in September, and first applied back then, and I was an original subscriber to The Athletic, and I agree with everything you said. There's so much good stuff on the site. And I'm a Yankees fan, I'm a Brooklyn Nets fan, so I can read about the great national college football writers that I like, and also get local coverage of the teams that I follow. So yeah, and I guess I can say we give our writers kind of the freedom and the flexibility to do things. I know Dana O'Neill, the national college basketball writer, went to New Zealand for a week for a story. We've had hockey writers go to Europe and stuff like that. And those types of things are almost unheard of right now in sports journalism.
Yeah, I just think so much of what you guys do. It reminds me a lot of what the National tried to do late
Yeah.
80s, early 90s, whenever that was starting.
Yeah, I remember that. I was in high school, and they had a good idea, and that's another topic for I don't know all the ins and outs. I know some people who wrote for them. I think they weren't the most fiscally responsible, and it was just it was a good product. The idea was great. The execution wasn't great.
Well, it was really an idea that was probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 years ahead of its time.
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to sum it up, because the concept that you guys are doing now seems very, very, very similar to what it is that they tried to do.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's good, the Athletic, you get good national coverage. They've hired away some of the best national writers that, the Athletics guys, Ken Rosenthal and company, broke all the Houston Astros stuff, but also, really good local writing as well.
Well, let's talk about basketball. Vanderbilt loses big to a Tennessee team that honestly is not that good. I don't know what they can do at this point with the season. The talent is so limited. I think that last year's team right now would beat this team, which is very telling.
Obviously last year's Aaron Nesmith wasn't nearly as good as this year's Aaron Nesmith, and last year's Yanni Wetzel wasn't as good as the Yanni Wetzel who's playing at San Diego State now. And Simi Shatu, obviously there are a lot of issues, chemistry issues or locker room issues with that. But from a pure talent standpoint, even after the Garland injury, that team was a lot better than this team. And, we haven't talked in a while, and we're not breaking ground here. After Nesmith, it was just a shame. We haven't spoken since, so I can, it was a shame because, you watch that team play against Auburn, and, with Nesmith as a superstar, Saban Lee doesn't have the attention on him, so he can do his thing more, and then it there's less pressure on freshmen like Dylan Dessou or Jordan Wright to kind of do their thing, and you could, there was some real optimism. This team wasn't gonna be an NCAA tournament team, but you saw some progress, and you loved the fight in that Auburn game, and then the Nesmith news was just crushing, and you're left with a bunch of freshmen and quite frankly, that weren't really that highly ranked. And, Dylan Dessou has a lot of potential, but he did not play well the other day from shooting the ball. And, it's just Saban Lee is a very talented player with a unique skill set, but is not really suited to be the number one option. And we're already seeing what we saw last year when he's really the only offense trying to break down the defense. So, I feel bad for Saban Lee, the situation he's been put in, and I'm sure you've rehashed this a bunch, but it's almost unheard of for a program to suffer two injuries that Vanderbilt has suffered in back-to-back seasons. And, not even to mention Cleveland Brown, who, I would say is clearly the third most important player. I don't know if he's the third best player on the team, but as far as your ranking importance of people you could least afford to lose, obviously Nesmith would be one, Saban Lee would be two, and I think Cleveland Brown is clearly number three.
Well, in sports, roles at the very top are very important. And in football, of course, that's usually the quarterback 9 times out of 10. And you can win without an ace quarterback if you're great at other things. You look at what Joe Flacco did in the winning a couple of Super Bowls where he was just okay, but their defenses were phenomenal. But you look at the quarterbacks, I mean, they did a thing about this. And by the way, I am getting back to Aaron Nesmith. I'm just taking a while to get there. They did the thing about how the quarterbacks that have been in the AFC title game were Flacco and Brady. And, they've been the same names for the last, 17, 18 years now. In baseball, that guy is your Friday night starter a lot of times. If you got one of those, that's kind of a game changer. And, of course, Vanderbilt, one reason it's been so good in baseball is because it's always had that. And in basketball, it is what Bill Simmons calls the alpha dog. And Aaron Nesmith had become the alpha dog. I don't think Saban Lee is an alpha dog, but he was doing great as the sidecar to that, and the roles worked pretty well. Now, they didn't have enough other places to compensate for that, but you had the feeling that if they catch some breaks, they could win 4 or 5 games in the conference, which was a huge step up from where they were, and it was progress, and it was something that people could be encouraged about. But you take him out of the equation, and the rest, I mean, literally it has absolutely fallen apart, as you've seen in the 3 games since.
Yeah, it's just Vanderbilt's a very easy team to defend right now. You take away Saban Lee's penetration, and then, the roster, who scares you from 3? I mean, Max Evans has shown that he can get hot. He did so in the Arkansas game, and he'll hit 2 or 3 threes in a row. But are other teams scared of Max Evans shooting? No. Dylan Dessou, I think, in time will be a good player and a knockdown 3-point shooter. But right now, you're scared of Dylan Dessou. So Vanderbilt's just a very easy team to defend right now. So it's just. I hate saying this phrase, it is what it is. I don't really know what else to say about the team. They just, the roster needs to improve. And, I know there's some guys sitting out. We'll find out if DJ Harvey, I know he's a talented kid, and if the roster can improve next year, we'll see what happens with Aaron Nesmith. We'll see what happens with Cleveland Brown. But right now, it's just there's not a lot. There's not enough talented guys on the roster right now.
Well, those guys are complementary 3-point shooters. In other words,
right, yes.
You can take a few looks a game. Maybe you hit 2 or 3 on a good night, but you're going to take them when your looks are open because teams are preoccupied with Aaron Nesmith. Now, teams are just really crowding them on the perimeter, taking away penetration, taking away those looks from 3 a lot of times. They're not maybe taking them away, but they're not wide open looks sometimes. All you have to be worried about on offense right now, for the most part, is Saban Lee and Scottie Pippen Jr., and their looks, the quality of their looks have now declined, and they're just, I mean, we could have this podcast all day. We're going to keep coming back to the same place. But where I want to go, I wrote a piece about.
I do want to say,
Sure.
I want to commend Scottie Pippen. I thought he played well the other night. He's been a lot is put on his shoulders. Too much has been put on his shoulders, basically for probably what he was ready for. And I think he plays with calm, poise, and not afraid to take a shot. And I just in a difficult situation, I thought he played well.
Well, and if you're looking for things and they are few and far between. One thing, and I've said this for a while, and I continue to say it, I think he's a pretty good offensive point guard for a freshman right now. It looks like he can play in the league on that end of the floor. Now, the defense we've hashed and rehashed, but at least there is that.
Yes, I agree.
The piece I wrote about the 3-pointers seemed to resonate with a lot of people, and the point I was trying to make was it's really not about the fact they didn't hit a 3 and ripping into the players for this and that. I think that's missing the point. the point is the way that Vanderbilt used to win in basketball games is pretty much now completely disappeared now that Aaron Nesmith is out. And the thing that concerns me is I don't see them out recruiting shooters to replace the roster with. And I don't know how this gets better until they do that.
Yeah, I mean it's basketball. There's different ways you can win. Vanderbilt historically has won without shooting. I would say that has changed a little bit in recent years. Every team has shooters. It's not, back in my day when I was in school and, it was definitely a much more perimeter oriented team or shooting team. There's some of Kevin Stallings' better teams were more athletic. Sure, you had your John Jenkins in there, but you also had guys like, Jeff Taylor who morphed into a good shooter. So yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's about putting the ball in the basket and whatever talent deficiencies you might have. If you can shoot from the outside, it kind of always gives you it gives you a chance. And it's a cliche you hear announcers say, hey, 3-point shots an equalizer, and that's why there's been a lot of over the years Vanderbilt teams that weren't maybe as talented as other teams, especially at home, that would get hot and kind of shoot the other team out of the gym. So they had one of the best shooters in the country on the team, and lost him to an injury. And, as we talked about, when he's on the floor, that takes less pressure off some other guys like Dessou who can shoot. Maybe guys like Jordan Wright can develop into a shooter. I think Scottie Pippen's going to be a quality 3-point shooter. And I know I don't want to spend too much time talking about this, but I know it's a hot topic. I will say, as a Vanderbilt alum and season ticket holder, I was embarrassed when fans booed Saban Lee for going in and not shooting a three. I think it was specifically him, pump faked and drove in. Here's a kid who's busted his ass for 2 years on some bad teams, and for him to have to hear people boo, I don't care what you think. You don't boo a college kid, and if people want to disagree, that's fine. And I know Vanderbilt fans, there's wide-ranging thoughts on the streak. I thought the streak is cool. I care that it's over, but it didn't really bother me too much. I talked to an older alum that I know very well who lives in New York and watches every game, and he has whatever. And I said something about the streak, and he said, "Oh, go F the streak. Who cares?" So, I mean, there's so people to think that it's like all people cared about. That's not true. So I just wanted to get that off my chest. I left the game very disappointed that anyone would boo Saban Lee or whoever. I think it was Saban Lee for shooting an open layup in a game where he's just busting his ass.
Well, I didn't take it as booing the players. Maybe this is putting it,
what,
but that's how it's going to be interpreted.
For a layup,
yes,
and there was booing, so I don't know how else. That's how I took it.
No, well, I mean, my point is, I think that was the only outlet fans had to vent frustration, but I don't think that's how you handle it. So I'm in agreement with you. I mean, this is this is where we are.
Would I have rather maybe someone taking a shot from the outside than trying to three? Sure, but I'm not going to boo. So okay, we don't. I know you wrote about it. We don't need to rehash too much. I just, you know me. I'm not Mr. like hot take or whatever like that. But I felt strongly that I was disappointed.
Well, and here's the other thing. It's not like they went 0 of 9 for 3. They tried 25 times. They didn't hit them. Could they have done the last couple minutes a little differently? Yeah, but to put all that on college kids, I think that's misplaced. But anyway, we were going to talk some baseball. Let's table that till the end of the podcast.
Sure.
Because there's some mailbag questions that are on basketball. So rather than skip around, let's get to those. The mailbag is sponsored by Vanderbilt fan Josh Minton, an independent insurance agent operating out of Brentwood. If you're looking for a one-stop shop to take care of your insurance needs, Josh has you covered. Call him today, 615-933-1979. Email him at josh@hqinsurance.com. Follow him on Twitter at JoshuaMintonHQ or at facebook.com/JDMintonHQ. He's my insurance agent. Give him a try. Tell him you heard about it here. VU Seth says, does Jerry Stackhouse's reaction to losing the 3-point streak shock or surprise you? I think most fans understand and are willing to be patient as we rebuild, especially after 2 crucial injuries. But the blatant disregard for the history of the program is very concerning. Saban Lee admitted to not knowing about the streak's jeopardy till the last minute. This seems to be on the coach. At what point do you think Stackhouse knew the streak was in jeopardy?
Well, I think he was just defending his players. He was disappointed. I'm not saying this because I'm defending Jerry Stackhouse. I'm saying it because it was my opinion, but I agree that he was disappointed that his players were getting booed. So that probably triggered him like, I'm worried about, ending the losing streak, not this. I don't think he has a disregard for the tradition in the history of the program. I think if someone would have asked him about it in a different setting when it wasn't so emotional, he'd probably be like, sure, it's cool, the streak's great and all that, but in the heat of the battle, you're trying to win the game. I realize at a certain point we're going to win the game. So um, I don't I don't interpret that as a coach who doesn't appreciate the history of the program at all. I came home. I didn't really do any follow up reading stuff like that. I saw some quotes, so I don't want to. I don't know exactly what he said, but from what I saw on Twitter, I just interpreted that as someone who's defending his team.
Yeah, I was in the room for that. I again did not really have an issue with how he handled it. I think those some of that comes from other places, which I'll probably get into in another podcast at another time. But for now, let's go to the next one. Raiders 1967 says, can you discuss how a member or members of the Vanderbilt basketball team could be unaware of the 3-point streak? Well, really, this is the same question. But again, I think that the people that I think took it the hardest were the people that had played there and hit a bunch of those.
Yeah, I mean, I've never, I can't speak to how they knew or didn't know. I think, in fact, who said it? Maybe Luke Cornett said it that he didn't appreciate the streak or really understand its importance until after he played. So maybe that answers the question right there. These guys, they show up. Everyone hits threes in every game. I mean, Tennessee only hit 1 3. It's a rarity when a team doesn't hit a three. So it's not something where it's like, wow, guys, we've hit a three in 32 straight games. I wonder what the streak is. It's just understood that in college basketball, you're going to hit at least 1 3 in a game. Obviously, it's unique at Vanderbilt because of the history and hitting them in every game. So I'm not shocked. I guess I'd be mildly surprised that someone didn't know, but I'm not shocked. And how unaware college kids are about certain things. So yeah, I don't. I guess that's again I'm mildly surprised.
Well, it's a product of the situation, okay? If they are contending for an NCAA tournament or an SEC title, people are going, okay, they lost, but bigger picture, this program's in good shape right now. Right now, there's nothing much to be positive about other than you hope a couple of young players develop. And when you're in that kind of spot where it's gotten so bad, people tend to focus on stuff like that.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm in a negative way of a team that's struggling mightily. It happening at home in a loss to Tennessee. So I think that's why emotions ran as high as they did on all sides.
Well, it seems like we use that phrase "perfect storm" an awful lot the last couple of
It's
years.
it's really been unfortunate, for the basketball program. I mean, it's you don't. I don't want to make excuses because even if this team was healthy the last 2 years, it's not an NCAA tournament team. Well, last year you could argue if Garland stays healthy and then there's better chemistry, that was probably an NCAA tournament team. But it's just it's unfortunate.
Well, my in-laws were in town, went to the game this weekend, and I think my mother-in-law said in passing, like, how did they get this bad? And it's like we kind of know in our head how it happened, but trying to explain that to people anything less than
Yeah.
like 10 minutes is darn near impossible to do. And then you're still like once you're done with it all, you're like, I know what happened. I was there, but it still kind of doesn't all make sense.
Right. This team, I mean, the program's coming off back-to-back NCAA tournament appearances, what, 3 and 4 years ago? It's not that far removed from, we talked recently as, Kevin Stallings beginning of his last year, maybe a second to last year, when Vanderbilt had one of the better top 10, top 15 rosters in the country at one point. So it just tells you in college sports, good and bad, things can fall apart quickly and things can turn around quickly. Obviously right now it's not looking like any quick turnaround is imminent, but it really shows you how quickly things can fall apart.
Papa Hick 4VU says, is there anything at all to be excited and encouraged about in regards to the basketball team for the next 2 or 3 seasons?
Well, I have absolutely no inside information on this. You might know more. If Aaron Nesmith decides to come back and I think this team could be and Cleveland Brown comes back as a red shirt. And again, I don't have any information on that. I think the core could be pretty good next year. I think you're looking at a decent team. But if that doesn't happen, then it's hard to find positives. You need guys to take leaps. You need Jordan Wright, who I've been pleasantly surprised by, to get better, to take those. You used to see it a lot more, especially a Vanderbilt guy. Might average 3 points his freshman year, 7 points, 10 points, and just gradually get better. You need some development from players, which we haven't seen. We don't know enough about the Jerry Stackhouse developmental program because he's only been here for a half a season. So if he can develop some of these guys, that'd be a good thing. But I'm right. I can't sit here and say with this roster, I think they'll be better next year than better the next year. There's no tangible evidence of that right now.
Well, I was told this weekend by Vanderbilt that Brown is going to try and come back this year. There was a rumor about a red shirt,
Okay.
and I've been trying to track this down for probably 3 weeks, and I finally got an answer on Saturday. That is the official word, is that he is planning to come back this season. I would presume he is still another probably 3 to 4 weeks away. I think their situation, and rarely are things this simple, but I really think this one is. Develop the players around you to the best you can and don't do anything stupid as a coaching staff. And then they have to recruit, because that chatter has been out there a long time, and that is not an idle concern.
Right. No, it's about players, and I don't care how well you develop and how well you recruit. You need better, every program needs better players. That's why Kentucky keeps recruiting, Duke keeps recruiting, and it's college athletics is about recruiting great players, and it helps to be well coached. You love for your program to have a great recruiter and a great head coach, but you need players. Look at Tim Corbin.
That's worked out pretty well.
He's a lot better coach when he's got the 2019, 2020 roster than he does when he's got the 2012 roster. That's not a great example because there's a lot of highly recruited kids in there, but they just didn't have the personnel. They were all young.
Well, and that's what Jerry's got to learn, is that Tim came in that first year and he had, I guess, his own Aaron Nesmith and Jeremy Sowers, and another one in Jensen Lewis. I guess that would have been their Saban Lee, or not Jensen, Mullins, although Jensen was good that year too. But
Yeah.
he took that talent, he maxed it out. They had some holes some places, but he used what he had, and they had made a good run. They got into a super regional where they got smoked by a team that was a lot more talented than they were.
That was the second year. That was the second year.
Right. Yeah, okay. That was the first year I covered it, but you're correct. That was the second year.
There was baseball before Chris Lee, believe it or not.
that is hard to believe. But
I know.
We're getting old enough where you wonder. But
Yeah.
Basically, okay, in the next year, that's when it dropped off. He had taken advantage of their experience. The 05 team wasn't that great, made a run at the NCAA tournament, kind of lost the chance in the last weekend of the year. And then in 06, he reloaded. But at that point, he had built on his success, and that's when they landed the Alvarezes and the Prices and those guys. And, of course, then in the last half dozen years, they've taken it to a different level. But point is, even Tim, as you noted, didn't get to it just by coaching alone. He's a great coach, but he knew that it took more. And I think that's the thing that Stackhouse is going to have to realize is I think that is a more important element than he has realized so far, is a good way to put it. Chester Copperpot asked why you picked the Athletic. I think you kind of went into that, but if there's any leftovers you didn't get into, now's the time.
Well, I wasn't looking to switch jobs at all. Loved Athlon. It was just an opportunity that came up. And like Chris and I both talked about, I really respect what the Athletic's doing. And, I'm 48 years old and kind of decided that if I wasn't, it was kind of ready for a new challenge. And if I didn't take this opportunity, then, not to say that people don't hire people in their 50s, but, you get a little bit older and it's harder to switch jobs. And quite frankly, in sports journalism, there's not a ton of great opportunities out there right now, let alone one where you don't have to move. So I just really respected and I liked the staff that was in place here in Nashville. It's not like I had to go out and hire writers. Joe Rexrode, I think, is the best, really, really outstanding columnist, the best one we've had here in Nashville. Adam Vingan does a great job covering the Preds, and John Glennon does a great job with the Titans there. So just a new opportunity, time for a change. By the way, I've had a lot of people on Twitter. I still will be Vanderbilt sideline reporter. I actually had that in my contract.
Well, congratulations on getting that one negotiated in. Not like I figured they would have an issue with it, but you never know.
No, I interviewed I interviewed with 3 people at the Athletic. The first person I did, they're like, well, we'll have to see. And then the next 2 people didn't seem to think it was a big deal. So I got it worked in. I had a funny exchange with Jeff Miller, who most people, probably fans, don't know, but he runs the IMG department, IMG Vanderbilt. So he's not a Vanderbilt employee, but he works for IMG in the athletic department. And I texted him, told him I switched jobs, just told him my new email information. And he's like, oh, didn't realize you had a full-time job. I thought sideline reporting was your only job. And I said, well, by the quality of my work, you probably thought I was devoting a full 40 hours a week to my craft. But no, it's just a weekend gig.
Nothing like humility, Mitch.
Yeah, I know.
What I hear you saying is that I'm a big enough deal that I can just make demands to the Athletic that are like, okay, he's Mitch.
You sort of, not really. But
I like how I turned the tables on you for a change.
Put it that way.
I like how I was able to finally leave you speechless because you've done that to me a couple of times. But let's talk baseball. The polls came out today. Rankings, I guess, is a better way because it's not like they've got a bunch of people voting on a poll, but Baseball America made Vanderbilt number 1. D1 Baseball made Vanderbilt 2 last week. Collegiate Baseball in December, I think, made Vandy 2. So, again, the experts are speaking, and they were expecting another run at a national title, which is no surprise.
Yeah, and I in a text thread with someone, I'm not disagreeing at all with this or arguing, but it's crazy that a team that basically is, losing six of 9, I would say, if I'm going to call Duvall a regular from last year, which he pretty much was, 6 of 9 regulars from the batting order. It's very Alabama-esque, like Alabama losing 8 starters on both sides of the ball and being a preseason number 1. So, yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll talk more about this. I know you got a lot planned for your site, but I think it's as good as I felt about the frontline pitching in a while. There's some guys need to step up. The Ethan Smiths of the world who's got potential, and there's some bullpen parts that probably need to step up. But as far as the frontline starters and closer, that's as good as I've felt about Vanderbilt heading into a season. And then, I think Cooper Davis we saw enough of Cooper Davis last year to be pretty confident that he's going to be a very good outfielder. I don't know if we like what we saw of Isaiah Thomas last year, but he still has to prove that he can be an SEC caliber outfielder. I think he can be. Heard great things about Dominic Keegan last year, even though he didn't play. There's a lot of chatter that he almost unseated Julian Infante at first base later in the year, even though he's a catcher by trade. I think Ty Duvall, if he can get a little bit better BABIP luck that we've talked about for years, he'll hit for a higher average. But he's been a clutch hitter, so yeah, I think I'm looking forward to it. It's loved the previous crop of guys, but it's always kind of fun when there's a new crop taking over, and it feels like there's a lot of turnover this year, so that it's reason for optimism to be excited. And it's just fun that there's a lot of new faces as well.
I think the best way to sum up the pitching staff is this. There might have been years where they might have had more arms that you felt you could trust, maybe like 8 or 9. Maybe now that list of proven commodities is more like, I don't know, a half dozen or whatever. But I think in terms of the innings you can cover with those arms, I don't think I've ever gone into season feeling they can cover more innings with outstanding arms than this one.
Yeah, I didn't listen to the whole thing, but I listened to part of your podcast with Aaron Fitt, and I kind of like the way you explained it. It's, it will always be as simple and neat as you tried to explain it there, but, you got X innings in a weekend, 27 outs to cover, if you get this, and this, there's weird things happening. Someone only lasts 2 innings, but if things go to form, Vanderbilt's going to have as many outs covered by really, really good to elite pitchers as they probably ever have had.
D1 Baseball last week released its Vanderbilt preview and its projected lineup. And here's how these things work. They basically go to Vanderbilt and say, hey, who are your starting nine right now? By that time, they knew Jason Gonzalez wouldn't be with the team. So here's the lineup they submitted with maybe a surprise or two in here. The big thing was that Austin Martin got shifted back to third and all that. So that was probably the most interesting thing. But the way they lined up on paper were Duvall at catcher, Keegan first, Ray second, Martin third, Carter Young, a true freshman at short, left field to right, Davis, Isaiah Thomas, Matt Hogan, and then take Colwick as the DH, which surprised me because I thought that might be Spencer Jones. Colwick was a kid that came there as a shortstop, and I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. I always thought maybe him as a field guy first rather than a hit guy, but I may be totally off base on that. But
Did he
that
play
was the
some
thing that
outfield
surprised
too?
me.
Did he play some outfield in the fall?
Well, the way fall ball goes is they play all over the place sometimes. Yeah. And so he probably did. But yeah, the Gonzalez thing, I think that shifted the complexion of the lineup a little bit because you've got him in there. You're going, okay, well, there's some power sources in there between Martin, the way he came on. Thomas has got massive power, and then Gonzalez has it too. Duvall's got a little bit of pop. Keegan's got some. But I think the subtraction of Jason Gonzalez from that lineup, and effectively, I would probably say that's where Colwick gets a spot if he doesn't. Either that or probably Matt Hogan is on the outs. And I think Hogan had a decent fall with the bat. So that's a place where the switch from Gonzalez to whoever replaces him is potentially a pretty significant drop-off. We'll wait and see. They get talented kids, but we did an all-decade team, and one thing that really stood out to me is how often a lot of players took a couple years to develop. Like you think of Steven Scott as the end-of-year Steven Scott. Well, his freshman year, he had, 25 plate appearances, and I think hit, 100 or something like that. Point being, even good players take a while to develop, and I think the Gonzalez subtraction there, you could see that be significant, particularly early in the year.
Yeah, and I mean, I was going to make that point. You kind of just made it in a different way. As young and new as this team is right now, there's only one true freshman to projected starter, and there's usually more. There's usually 2 or 3 true freshmen starting even on a veteran team. And Gonzalez, I'm disappointed that he's not going to be on the team. To me, I did not consider him as a sure thing. Like I thought he would start, but he hit well earlier last year than before getting squeezed out. But I wouldn't chalk him up as a surefire. Plug him in 4 or 5 in the lineup and be confident he's going to be able to hit good SEC pitching. I'm not saying he wouldn't. Again, he got off to a good start last year. I know he's a power hitter who's going to strike out a lot. Maybe I'm underselling him. But I was hopeful that he could take that next step. But yeah, I mean, this team's going to be different. You're not going to replicate that power. It's very difficult to replicate the power this team had last year. Austin Martin, though, we probably, based on what we saw late last year, wouldn't be surprised. What do you think if he hits 15 home runs? I wouldn't be surprised.
No, I wouldn't either. I think that he showed pop at the end of the year. That was like literally the only flaw that you could find in his game was he hadn't done that.
Am I underselling Gonzalez there?
Well, here's my thought, okay? From memory, he had about a 460 on base percentage a year ago, which there was some noise in that. There was a very high BABIP. He also strikes out a lot. So I'm saying I'm 98% confident that was coming down, but that's a pretty darn good starting point.
Yeah.
He'd also shown some things defensively. I think that's a big loss, but potentially. Yeah. I mean, I can see how it's not, but
leadership too.
Yeah.
Leadership too. So yeah, I'm not trying to, I like the guy. Obviously you could point to his the way he stayed engaged, even though after getting beat out last year, has really helped keep this chemistry strong last year. You got a kid there who probably thought he was going to, play 50-something games last year. And by all accounts, he was as engaged as any player who played every day on that team last year.
Yeah, after that, my two really big concerns right now are Carter Young at short. I think the glove is way ahead of the bat, but even if you're
The fact that he's already been placed on on a roster for the Cape, does that suggest that Tim Corbin's telling certain people that he's a really good player and is good enough for the Cape? Is that how that works?
I do believe that's probably an excellent guess there, Mitch. But here's my concern. We've seen this over the speed of the game gets young players early. Okay, and especially at a place like that where guys get to short or get home to first faster than you're used to. Those kind of things, and then all of a sudden you have to rush your throws a little bit. Then all of a sudden those things get wild. There's an adjustment period, and that's in college baseball. Period. But that's particularly going to be the case at a high impact defensive position. I'm not saying that he can't handle it. He comes in with a reputation, I think, as an excellent defender. And all joking aside, I think the point you made is a really good one. But that is something that almost always happens. I've seen it too much. Number two, Justin Henry Malloy was, I think, the guy that last year, if you're looking at true freshmen at this time, he was the bat that people thought might crack the lineup and might start. He did start early in the year at third base in that first series once or twice. I think especially between the tournament and especially once Gonzalez was gone and he's a corner guy, I was a little shocked to not see his name in that lineup.
Right, and you never know. Could be motivation, Tim Corbin or whoever, quote unquote, shared this information with D1 or, knows that the players see this stuff and it could, you don't know how these things work. So the fact that he's not listed as a potential DH or third baseman or first baseman, whatever, I still wouldn't be surprised to see him in the lineup as a DH in opening day.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You see, there's been plenty of years they had a guy that didn't start for weeks or maybe a month or two that ended up being a big deal. Xander Wheel, great example there.
Right.
But the other thing too, and Tim told me this, I think, last year when I was asking about the freshman. He said, we had no idea what Brian Reynolds was going to be. We had no clue that he was going to hit the way he did as a freshman. He said, we put him out there one day and all of a sudden it just takes off. He said, we didn't know that was coming. So surprises sometimes work the other way as well.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I don't know if you want to use the term gamer. It's a cliche, but it's true. I remember Anthony Gomez was like that early in his freshman year. He didn't start, but every time he'd go in, I just happened to go to a lot of early season games, I think, with my son that year. I was like, this Gomez dude hits line drives. That's all he does. And then he kind of worked his way into the lineup and he hit for 3 straight years. Or, so you just, usually we kind of hear rumblings in the fall. This guy can hit, or that guy, this guy is going to help on the mound. But until the season starts and you're seeing live pitching from another team, you don't really know.
The MLB Network right now was doing its top players at every position, and they were running through their top 10 at every spot, and they had Reynolds. I don't know if he was consensus top 5 overall, but I know somebody had him at 4. I think somebody had him at 5. He is starting to be considered already one of the best left fielders in baseball, which is crazy given that he didn't even make the opening day roster.
Yeah, I'll make it. I don't work at Athlon Sports anymore, but as you know, Chris, I worked through the production of our baseball magazine this year, and we had Brian Reynolds on our Pirates cover, and I just remember seeing that come off from our designer. I was like, that, I remember. It seems like just 2 or 3 years ago, seeing that guy hit line drives at the middle at Hawkins Field. Now he's starting left fielder for the Pirates.
Mitch, the garage door below me just opened. My office is above the garage, and that is my wife's not very subtle hint of telling me it is time to take her parents to the airport. So with that,
all I know is if I'm asked to help my in-laws leave the premises, I do all I can to get moving on that front. So I understand where you have to go.
We will keep that between you and I. But in all seriousness, thank you for joining us today. Congratulations again on your very well-deserved promotion. And give out your new Twitter handle and anything else you'd like to throw out there.
Thanks. It's very complicated. It's at Mitch Light.
You always keep things complicated.
I went from at Athlon Mitt to at Mitch Light, and thanks for having me. Good to catch up. It's been a couple of weeks, and hopefully we can get on a regular schedule again.
You really kill it with these creative Twitter handles. I got to hand it to you.
Yeah, although someone did reach out to me on social media and said I missed an opportunity to be like, I could have been the Athletic Mitch or something like that. So the Athletic.
That's a good point. Maybe you should think these things through a little better.
Yeah.
And maybe I should shut up and get out of the office and end the podcast before I tick somebody off. So, hey, thanks for joining us. He's Mitch Light of The Athletic. I'm Chris Lee of VandySports.com. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you with more episodes this week.